Yo, I'm Matt,
And I'm Joel,
and we're FringeCraft. Today we're going to be watching Robert Bigelow tells Bob Lazar stories.
It's episode 1612 of the Joe Rogan Experience, and we just covered Robert Bigelow in our last week's video, and also him talking about Bob Lazar on Mystery Wire.
So we thought this was very synchronistic and the perfect opportunity to cover this subject again. So, without further ado, we'd like to get into the video. I guess right before we do that, please like this video if you like the content, and subscribe to us, and leave a comment, maybe talking about Bob Lazar or about Robert Bigelow. Lots of people really seem to like Bob Lazar, and he's a very interesting character, so let us know what you think about him. Alright, let's get into the video.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
You had encounters with Bob Lazar. You know Bob, and you were around when Bob Lazar first.
Now, is this going to be all about the Mylar balloon event?
What's the Mylar balloon event?
Oh, you don't know that one?
No.
So we all jump in my car to go out to the Alien Inn area out there, on
The Alien Inn, is that
out there.
Yeah, it's like a
north
a
of
bar or something.
Yes, north of that area. And so Bob Lazar, George Knapp, myself, and I think Gene Huff, who was Bob's friend. We all go out there. Well, unbeknownst to me, Bob has a Mylar balloon, which really bounces the radar signature a lot for its size, and a bottle of gas. Helium. So we find our way back out in the desert out there. I'm thinking we're on a UFO watch, which is always fun. Sometimes the best thing is the food you take along, right? And you're out there under the stars, and it's nice, and you have a good time just watching. So, but there's a rustle of things going on here, and next thing I know, there's a balloon. This Mylar balloon's inflated, and there's a slight breeze, and Bob lets it go. And we're on the opposite side of the mountain range from supposedly S4. And he wants to go that way. Thank God the wind was going in the opposite direction. It was traveling north instead of south. And it went the wrong way. So I'm thinking, my life's just passed before my eyes.
Why do you think your life passed before your eyes? Because if the balloon goes towards Area S4,
it's going to get picked up,
and then they're going to go find out where it came from.
And Wackenhut Security is going to come get us, and I'm going to spend the night in jail. So, it all just unraveled real quick.
And was this before Bob had gotten in trouble for bringing people to the observation point to watch? Because let's tell the story about Bob real quick. Bob said he worked for Area S4, and he was hired to back engineer what they believe were alien crafts. Along the lines, he had this top secret clearance, and along the lines of all this happening, they're monitoring his phone calls. Turns out Bob's wife is having an affair. Bob doesn't know about this. They remove him from the project because they believe he'll be emotionally unstable. He's freaking out, not knowing that his wife is having an affair, not knowing why he's pulled from this project. Doesn't totally understand, so starts telling people about what he's doing and telling people, listen, I can take you to a place where once a week they do these tests. So he starts bringing people to this area. They see these objects flying in these spectacular ways that we really can't do with any of our conventional aircrafts, and then Bob gets in trouble for that. Then Bob goes on the George Knapp show and starts explaining all these different things, presumably for self-preservation. Because the best way to probably protect your own life is to go public with this and explain everything that's happening. And they could discredit you and make you look like a nut, but if they kill you, then it leads credence to your story.
Yeah, it gives you a very huge hardship.
So when do you fall into the story?
Well, you've just given me an overload of information now that I'm pretty much aware of, but I don't know exactly when. I don't think. As I recall it, everybody was pretty much at ease, and I wasn't. It wasn't part of.
What year is this? This is all going on?
Oh God, I don't know, 91.
So this is around that time. This
Yeah,
is around,
91,
when was he
92.
on George Knapp's show?
Yeah, somewhere in that time frame. But I wasn't aware of a lot until I don't think at that time I was aware of him taking people out on, Wednesday nights to go see something out there. I kind of missed out on that or whatever, and I don't think this was anything like connected to that.
I think that was before this.
Yeah, probably.
That was, I think you're dealing with him out after, he had met George and
Yeah.
after he had told his story.
Yeah.
Because George is with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
obviously they had already met.
Oh sure.
So what was your initial, obviously you're a person that has a deep fascination with UFOs. And here you are talking to this guy who's clearly a genius, brilliant guy, Bob Lazar. And he's telling you this fucking bananas story. He's out there back engineering spacecrafts that came from another land that are using this element 115, this stuff that's just a theoretical element. It wasn't even proven by particle collider until 2013, somewhere along that line. Like, it was just theoretical up to that point. So he's telling you about all this stuff. What did you think?
I wanted to reserve judgment until I knew a lot more, and the more he talked, the more interesting it became. The more research that George did, things that he uncovered, it became more interesting, and so as I said a while back, I think George was doing an interview with me, and I said I wouldn't bet against Bob's the truth or the majority of everything that Bob has said.
We covered that.
Yeah, we definitely covered that in the Mystery Wire interview. It's like, if he's from Vegas, and if he's a betting man, he's not gonna bet against it, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what he said.
I think that Joe Rogan has a good point. It's like, well, he's clearly with George Knapp, so it's probably sometime after he's already taken his friends out there and they've seen this stuff, and that a lot of the story has transpired, and seems to be probably after that period. But I do still find it really interesting that, like, Robert Bigelow is already connected to it. Like, he's already with Bob Lazar going and doing
He's so
silly
central.
stuff in the desert.
Yeah, and not that many people know who Robert Bigelow is relative to how many people know about Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
But Robert Bigelow is probably more central of a figure in UFO paranormal stuff, because he makes all these foundations. He connects people and stuff.
Yeah.
So I want to hear what happens the rest of the story. They flew the balloon, then what?
And and it's very again, Las Vegas seems to be like this point where it's like you have not just the people who are interested in it, and Bob Lazar being, I suppose, a whistleblower, but like you have the organizations themselves, like, and Area S4 and this kind of advanced research going on there. It's just seems like a hot spot, and the desert seems to be a place that is commonly associated with these kind of phenomena and happenings. And you look at New Mexico, Roswell, and Nevada, right? It's
it's all these desert places.
Yeah. So, all right. You have anything to add before we go on?
No, let's keep going.
All right. Yeah, I do want to hear more about.
I gotta know the end of this story.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bet against it. Could they be errors and omissions for different reasons? Yeah, sure they could. But I would tend to say Bob is legitimate, and I don't. There's certain aspects of things that are parts of stories that you wonder, well, how could this happen, and so forth. But I think if you take all of the collective information and the work that George Knapp has done to validate things, it's awfully damn impressive.
But George is such an important part of it because he's a legitimate investigative journalist, and that was his career. And so he poured himself into this.
Oh, yeah.
And exposed all the different aspects of this story that seem to indicate that he's telling the truth.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
and that's what's crazy about it.
And George is not any normal journalist. He's like what? He has like 6 Peabodys.
Yes, he's fantastic.
And
so he's diving into this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the more he uncovers, the more it seems like Bob Lazar's story is legitimate.
Right. So I think I like the philosophy of reserving judgment until you have a preponderance of evidence that really moves you one way or another. You don't have to have 100%. I go by reasonable doubt.
But what was it like for you to be this guy who's had this deep fascination with flying saucers, and here you are talking? Like, let me tell you my experience with Bob, doing the podcast with Bob. I wanted one of two things. I wanted to go, oh, this guy's full of shit. Or I wanted, whoa, this guy's, it seems like he's not full of shit. I think he's telling the truth. I think this guy really did encounter these aircrafts and really did work on these spaceships, whatever they are. That's where I'm at right now. My experience with him, my communication with him, he didn't seem like he's full of shit at all. He's clearly a brilliant guy. His story has not changed at all over the 30 plus years that he's been saying it. It's a crazy story. But when you are a person like yourself, you so me even more than I, who is obsessed with this subject, the possibility of alien life that's visited this earth, and maybe even left crafts behind, and maybe these crafts are in the possession of some secret government agencies that are trying to observe them and back engineer them. What is it like to talk to this guy? Because this guy has seen the thing you're looking for. This guy, you're searching and all of your wondering and staring out into the heavens, and here's a guy that has actually touched it, actually worked on it, been inside one, tried to figure out how they work, can't do it, doesn't understand it. He's talking to these people. Everything's compartmentalized. You got the metallurgist people that are working on what kind of alloy this thing is made of. You got him, who's a part of the people that are trying to understand the propulsion system, and then you've got people that are giving you this information that, like, maybe they have been here forever. Maybe this is a part of an archaeological dig. Maybe they've been trying to study these things for decades with no advancement at all.
Yeah. So we came across, myself and a couple other people came across folks who could collaborate some of the things going on out there, such as silent craft actually lifting off at nighttime, not looking as though the control was very good, but actually lifting off, maneuvering like a real small trial kind of thing. And that fellow observed it from a distance where he wasn't supposed to be. George has come up with collaboration, I think, from 2 or 3 other sources also, besides what Bob said, about certain aspects of things out there. It's just that Bob's story is so much more in-depth, so much more detailed, like that book that he talked about years ago, coming across. Amazing things.
So tell people about the book?
Well, there was a book, as I remember, there was some kind of a book that Bob was allowed to look through, or he seized the opportunity to do it when he was in a room where the book was, but I think that was by design. And it was some kind of a holographic book that as you opened up the pages, whatever the stories were became a hologram. That's my recollection of a conversation that's decades old now. So,
What?
if I got it wrong, fire me. It's you'll have to talk to Bob about that, would you?
Okay.
Or talk to George.
Okay.
And because I remember something like that. I mean, that was like, oh, wow, what an amazing way to portray information in some kind of a book and actually have holographic images coming forth out of it. I don't know. It just was. So that I haven't ever heard of that being repeated any place in terms of something else like that happening. And so much that happened to Bob, it was so unique.
So that's interesting. And just one thing I want to point out is I think that would actually be a really great episode of JRE is to have George Knapp and Bob Lazar on together,
or all three of them,
or all three of them, and like Jeremy Corbell
and us too.
Yeah, us too. That would be great. Hey guys, you wanna invite us on? But last time Jeremy Corbell went with Bob Lazar, and I think a lot of people felt like
he overtalked.
Yeah, he just like kind of talked over Bob at times. But I feel part of it is Jeremy Corbell. So he's like the documentary filmmaker, but he's also so knowledgeable on it. Like he's so aware of all the happenings that he probably can give a great overview to someone who doesn't know the story just because of how...
Oh, yeah. He's an absolute enthusiast.
Yeah. Probably more into it than Bob is himself.
Yeah, he's probably more into it than Mr. Bigelow.
Yeah.
You can tell he puts all of his energy, it's like what he does for fun. He gets home, some people play computer games, whatever. He probably gets online and reads.
Yeah.
He probably watches this video.
But he definitely... it would be a great episode to see... Robert Bigelow, George Knapp, and Bob Lazar talking maybe amongst themselves with Joe Rogan kind of not like a moderator, but just bringing up different topics or ideas.
Yeah, they can throw in Hal Puthoff. And, I mean, they have... In the Skinwalker Ranch episode we did... Did we film the Skinwalker Ranch episode?
I'm not sure.
They have a lot of clips of Robert Bigelow, George Knapp hanging out. Or they're not really clips, they're like Polaroid pictures and stuff, and it just looks like, what a gang, you know? It's like that playing that game Phasmophobia or something like that. That's what it gave me the vibe of.
If you're into ufology and you see these people together, it's instantly you're interested.
They're like the core. I mean, we could go do what they do. Hell.
We're definitely not at that level, but, maybe one day.
We'll get there.
As long as we continue to build our expertise. But okay, let's continue watching and see what...
Oh, I was going to say about the holographic book. That's what he was just talking about.
Yeah.
That must have been so unbelievable in the 80s.
Yeah, and now it's duh, that's coming.
We have augmented reality,
We saw Tupac and Michael Jackson as holograms.
They didn't even have iPads back then, I mean, even the concept of a flat screen was even a nonsense,
Yeah.
So now we have iPads and we have whatever 3D glasses. You can look at an iPad. I don't know. I don't think it's that far-fetched.
Silent, Teslas are silent.
Yeah.
The idea of a silent vehicle isn't that out of turn.
Oh yeah, exactly. All right, let's see what he's got left to say about Bob Lazar.
All right.
There's also some very strange summary of what they understand or what they believe to be true about the origins of human beings, and that they believe that what these visitations were about was that human beings are the product of accelerated evolution, and that these species from wherever had been coming here and doing genetic experiments with primates and created human beings. Which is
the movie Prometheus.
Who knows? Wow, that's fun to
I've
think
never
about,
seen it.
But we were talking about this last night, how bizarre humans are. That out of all these things on Earth, we're the only ones with shoes. Out of all these things, we're the only ones that have to wear clothes. We're the only ones that jump into metal boxes with rubber tires and roll around on these hard surfaces that we created, or fly in planes, or send video through your phone to other people that are on the other side of the continent. We're weird. We're real weird. We're way weirder than anything else that exists. And if we are really a product of some sort of accelerated process like that, this is how they get the party started on these planets. They find semi-intelligent, curious animals that are using tools or using, opposable thumbs, and they do some things to them.
Yeah, there's a large variety of potential beginnings. More evidence for some than others, right? So that's always the trick.
Have you considered that? Is this like a subject that you've deeply considered and thought about?
Not really.
Really?
I'm here. I don't want to look a gift horse in the face. I'll take it for what it is, you know.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
I think about it a lot.
I don't know. I think
It's because you take
I
mushrooms
need more evidence
and DMT.
to be more curious about. I'm more concerned with other kinds of things that are now than where did the human species come from, particularly. I'm more driven by other kinds of things that could make a difference today, going forward.
So getting back to the Bob Lazar thing, when you first got to know him and you first were considering this story and how crazy it was, what was it like to meet a guy who, at least by his own accounts, had encountered this thing that you were seeking?
Well, Bob's a likable guy. He, as you said, he's very smart, and so he's interesting to talk to, right?
Yeah.
And so that's more than just entertaining. To listen to his story is profound, right? And so it gives you an awful lot to think about and to try to position as to how can you measure future information you might get against that story. How can you verify different kinds of things? And so I've heard a lot more silly things, I think, than what Bob was talking about. Didn't seem all that ridiculous. And then the more you get to talk to him, the more you get to know him, and people like George, who's an investigative journalist, it gets more and more wow.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience for...
I mean, one thing that I get from this is he's really level-headed, like, especially what he just explained at the end. He's like a reasonable person who doesn't seem like... So, you know, when you're watching that interview, the 60 Minutes interview, he seems...
Like, aliens are here now, I've seen them.
Yeah, he's like very direct and... almost because his worldview is challenged by that woman, but because... you know, Joe Rogan is more open to it, he's like, well, he's being more reasonable because he didn't have to, like, protect his worldview.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to necessarily just buy into fringe theories for, you know, just because they're interesting.
In fact, he almost seems somewhat skeptical and is, like, looking for proof to verify, like, that it's not just some crank.
Joe's theory about where humans came from could be true. I mean, I don't have any evidence one way or the other. I mean, it's just one possibility of many.
Joe, I love the fact that Joe Rogan's like, you don't think about this? And it's like really obvious. It's like, no, Joe, he doesn't take DMT and mushrooms and acid all the time. like, and smoke a bunch of weed all the time. Like, this is a guy who, well, I don't know, maybe he does, but...
business billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, you know, you kind of see the difference between their two characters. But basically, even what Joe Rogan was talking about is literally the storyline of the movie Prometheus, which you said you hadn't seen, but that is,
not seen
for those of you who haven't seen it, it's the prequel to the movie Alien and Aliens, and, you know, the Alien franchise. Alien vs. Predator is like the further down sequels. And the idea is that there are these characters. I guess the way the movie goes is you have this wealthy billionaire, maybe more so than Robert Bigelow, who it's like something Whalen, and he has Whalen Enterprises, and he wants to find out who created him because he created this artificial intelligence being that is like a son to him, and he feels like, oh, you know, what is it like to, like, look at this thing you've created and know, you know, that it's your creation. Anyway, so he wants to figure out who created him. And so he's like looking through the stars, and they find some kind of map somewhere.
Okay, now I want to watch it.
That leads them, and what creates them are this maybe won't spoil it, but maybe it won't spoil it. I don't think. But
well, you're gonna spoil it.
There's
Just be conservative on it.
Okay, I'll try not to spoil it. But it's the idea that they meet like this group of I don't even want to say individuals, some kind of higher life extraterrestrial that is human-esque, but like clearly like humans are from their genetic material mixed with apes, primates
with teeth. They have no hair and no teeth and no
like
no ears.
Basically, what you're saying, like they're very tall.
We're revisiting what do you call it?
Heaven's Gate. Yeah, exactly. It's so you have these, and they call them the engineers, like because they engineered humanity.
It reminds me of Dark City, another movie that's kind of similar to that. Okay, we're getting too deep on movies
and
here.
One more thing. And so the way Aliens ties into this whole thing is these engineers also created, from my understanding, or they at least use the aliens as a bioweapon.
Interesting. And bizarre.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan thinks that it's reality.
Yeah, exactly.
It could be. I don't know. I mean, there's so much possibility out there. Man, I enjoyed that interview, though, and it makes me want to watch more Bob Lazar stuff, because Bob Lazar, like, Robert Bigelow explained him as, he's this really interesting guy, he's super profound, and he's likable. Every time I've seen him, he seems kind of irritable and on edge, but maybe he just doesn't do well in interviews. I don't know.
Well, I think Joe Rogan said he had a headache that day and, like, was super... like, just it wasn't a good day for, like, he felt off that day, and so it just wasn't a good day for him, maybe. And so he does this interview that's like his most publicly seen thing, and it's like the worst side of him, and who knows. But I do think that, like, personally, I plan to watch the whole of this Robert Bigelow interview, and anything else that I see and find that I think is perfect for showing FringeCraft. Like, I'm gonna show it to Joel, and we'll try to figure out.
Bring it to you guys, our audience.
Because these were the clips that came from the Joe Rogan Experience, like, official, powerful JRE YouTube channel. But I'm sure there are some things that Robert Bigelow talks about that aren't covered in these two videos that are very pertinent, relevant, and, like, would be great stories to talk about and react to.
On the fringe.
Yes, exactly. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed, and
like, comment, subscribe.
Exactly. Let us know what you think of, again, Bob Lazar and Robert Bigelow, and do you think we were back engineered from aliens and monkeys?
Who knows? Maybe.
Who knows? Comment and let us hear what you think. All right. Well, I've been Matt.
I'm Joel,
and we're FringeCraft. Later.
See you guys.